Wishart.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, and can I obviously congratulate the Honourable Lady for securing this very important debate, and I very much agree with her that this issue is now becoming critical in order to deal with some of the pressing issues that we have in both of our constituencies. Mr. Speaker, I couldn't help thinking of her predecessor, Mike Weir, who was such a doughty champion of agricultural businesses right up and down Angus. And I think it was Mike, actually, in a series of debates that he made very, very informed and proper interventions, and it first warned about the danger of losing the seasonal agricultural worker scheme and the impact that that would have on businesses in her constituency and my constituency. So we owe a great deal to the work of Mike Weir over the years. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think, as you know, I represent some of the finest agricultural businesses in Scotland. Strathmore, that myself and the Honourable Lady share, in which I actually used to represent her part of Strathmore years and years ago, and the Carsagowrie, I think, could possibly be described as the breadbasket of eastern Scotland. The town of Blairgowrie in my constituency is almost exclusively synonymous with the soft fruit industry. Much of the heritage of East Perthshire is bound together with the tales of the berry farm and stories of luggies, cliques and dreels. And all of this is now at risk because of the cloth-eared approach of this government to the issue of seasonal agriculture workers and its self-defeating and damaging obsession with seeing absolutely everything through the lens of immigration. For this government, immigration is just something that's got to be stopped. It's got to be curbed. And what we're seeing now in our agricultural businesses is this has become collateral, and this has become a real issue for this, which has now threatened the very viability and survival of so many farms in my constituency. And I tried to figure out, why are they so resistant about putting forward a seasonal agricultural worker scheme? And it can only be about immigration. If it's not, the Honourable Lady could get up and tell me, why is there a reticence to put in place a scheme? It's all about immigration, isn't it? I'm seeing a blank look there, so I'm just presuming that it is, because I would know, Madam Deputy Speaker, that everything about leaving the European Union for this government is about stopping, curbing and doing all they can to stop people coming into this country. And in NFU Scotland, the Honourable Lady referred to the report, a very helpful and useful report which demonstrates the scale that businesses in my constituency and her constituency and all other members from Scotland rely on foreign migrant labour. And I know it's hard to believe this as we look outside and the beast of the East is settling on the good city of London. But the first strawberries of the season, British strawberries of the season, have actually appeared. They've come from a place in South Wales, and they've actually beaten the record which was set 10 years ago on February 26. And this just shows and demonstrates the scale of the innovation that's been part of this industry as it's got forward, the technology that's been applied, the way that the season has now been extended to incorporate new planting methods, and obviously the use of polytunnels. And the cropping period now is extended and is usually from April to the end of October. It's fantastic to get a punnet of strawberries before the Easter holidays and you're still enjoying them beyond Halloween. That is the type of season that we're in now, and that is the type of issue that we really need to address. But what remains the same with all the advent and innovations in the technology and the way that we do this business is that somebody has to make sure that the crop is planted, maintained and harvested. Somebody still has to do that. Now, when I was a young lad, we've heard some of the stories so far, this was traditionally done by young and local people. The young Wishart, for example, would regularly head out to the berry fields with his luggy by his side and enjoy the prospect of being in the open air to supplement his meagre pocket money over the course of the summer. then in the tatty holiday, I'd be out howking the tatties out the field. And that was the sort of thing that we always enjoyed, and something that I think paid for my first musical instruments, Madam Deputy Speaker. This is the contribution. This is the contribution that seasonal work on the fields has made to the aspiring Wishart as a musician. Now, of course, practically all that soft fruit is lifted from people from the other side of Europe, and whom our producers almost exclusively rely to get their crop in. And I was in this house when the seasonal agricultural worker scheme was actually put in place. And I remember all the debates that we had about seasonal agriculture worker scheme, because the Labour government, it have to be said, were always quite keen to get shot of it. I mean, they weren't the most, how should we say, friendly government towards the countryside and agricultural issues. It just wasn't part and parcel of the way that a Labour government would look at these particular issues. And why should they? They had very few members that actually represented countryside areas. So what we then had was that the Conservative government came in, and we were told not to worry about the demise of the seasonal agriculture worker scheme because we were in the European Union. All of these countries, accession countries as they were then, were now coming regularly because of freedom of movement. You don't need it anymore. Don't worry about it because you will have that steady supply of labour. Well, that's worked out perfectly, isn't it? Because we're now just about to leave the European Union, and all of a sudden that source of migrant labour will quickly diminish in value. And I intervened in the honourable member from Carlston and whatever else. And it was this key point. We're probably going to be just about get by this year. Just about get by. I'm not certain that all of the businesses in my constituency will manage to survive, but somehow I think we'll muddle through because we still have that access to Eastern European labour. That goes next year, unless we have transitional arrangements in place, and maybe the Minister could give us that assurance just now that there will be a transition until they get their act together and put this together. But this next year it becomes critical because we end the usual source for all this. And I'm not want to get into the debate about where we go looking for further migrant workers and all this stuff from Ukraine to Sri Lanka. You know, like, it sounds just a bit like fantasy where we had such a good source of migrant labour previously. And of course there's the other massive disincentive that we've heard about today, and that is the exchange rate and the fact that these seasonal agriculture workers can now go and do it in probably more clement conditions in Spain and in southern Europe, and they've got their euros, so it's not going to be an issue for them. But don't pretend to me that the declining exchange rate has nothing to do with their chaotic Brexit. It's got absolutely everything to do with it. So we're taking a double hit when it comes to seasonal migrant agriculture workers. Not just are we losing them through the lack of freedom of movement, we're losing them because their chaotic Brexit has made sure that when they come here, they're earning less money than they have. And I just want to say a little thing about seasonal migrant workers, because I've probably visited all of my farms on several occasions in my constituency. I probably visit most of the Honourable Lady's farms, or certainly parts of my constituency. And what I find is an incredible melting pot of people from different cultures and nationalities who come to Scotland to sample a different type of experience. And what we see, and what we've seen over the years, is through all sorts of cultural evenings, through Cayleys, people enjoying the experience of being in Scotland. Now, these are the brightest and the best of their countries. We think of them just fruit pickers, but these are the students who will, in future years, be earning their own hard-earned euros. And what we want to do is give them a positive experience so they'll come back to Scotland and make sure that is spent. And that is soft power at its very, very best. Seasonal agricultural work is good for the producer, good for the migrant that comes across here, good for our local communities, good for our nation. Minister, sort it. Fix it out and make sure that we get this sorted. And another point I want to make, Madam Deputy Speaker, because it's important. I have the Hutton Institute in my constituency. It does some fantastic work in ensuring that the crop, particularly in raspberries and strawberries, but also in potatoes, is more resilient, is more productive, that is more pest resistant. Now, the people who work in the Hutton Institute are primarily European. They're thinking about going away. Why would they stay in a country that's telling them that they're the source of all its problems and ills, and its defining priority is to make sure that people like them stop coming to this country? Why would they continue to work here where they have transferable skills and they could go elsewhere where they're much more welcome and accommodating? So from the field to the laboratory, we are dependent and require that labour, and it's this that we put at risk, Madam Deputy Speaker. I've only got one message to the Minister. We've debated this. Get it sorted. Put forward a scheme where we know that we could go back to our farmers and tell them that they will have something in place that will allow them to harvest their crop. 750 tonnes of Scottish soft fruit production is dependent on this Minister doing the right thing. We could end in a situation where, although we have one of the best products in the world, our shelves will be packed with foreign produce. Last word, Madam Deputy Speaker, and it's just 4 words or 3 words. Get it sorted.
Asal Khan.